Making this public statement on behalf of Mr. Ian McGrail in response to the public statements made yesterday by Mr. McVeigh and the media coverage of my client's arrest. I will start by providing a chronology of undisputed facts and will leave the Gibraltarian public to draw their own conclusions as to what happened yesterday. The public inquiry was called at the behest of Mr. McGrail, who challenged Mr. Picardo publicly to do so following the early termination of Mr. McGrail's position as the Crown's principal law enforcement officer in June of 2020. After much delay, the inquiry was finally convened by His Excellency the Governor, Sir David Steele, in February 2022. I would invite you to visit the inquiry website, coircomp.gi. This will give you the clearest possible indication of the matters at the root of the inquiry. Among those issues is the so-called Operation Delhi, which was a police operation investigating allegations of hacking and or sabotage of the National Security Centralized Intelligence System, and also alleged conspiracy to defraud. Gibraltar is, of course, at constant threat of criminality, including potential terrorism. During the time that the system was down, the security alert was at substantial, meaning that an attack was likely. In November 2022, it came to Mr. McGrail's knowledge that there had been a breach of data kept by the inquiry solicitors. Following a number of prudential checks, which he took, the potential data breach was brought to the attention of the inquiry, who passed it on to the Royal Gibraltar Police. The importance of this is that had it not been for the reports to the authorities made by Mr. McGrail, the data breach might have gone undetected. Subsequently, police action indicated that there had indeed been a data breach. All this is a matter of public record. Now, entirely separately, Mr. McGrail retained some of his personal files. He was at the time extremely concerned that a criminal conspiracy was being covered up and that his position was at risk, and that there was a risk that the RGP data would be deleted. He later returned those files to the RGP and explained to the Commissioner why he retained them for a period, an explanation which he understood to have been accepted by the Commissioner. I'm referring, of course, to the Commissioner of Police, recently Mr. Alger. Subsequent to being informed of the inquiry breach, Mr. McGrail himself repeatedly suggested that an external force should be instructed to investigate that and other matters of concern, some of which have also been reported in the press. It was therefore a cause of relief and satisfaction to Mr. McGrail that officers from the police service of Northern Ireland were delegated the task of investigating the inquiry data breach and other matters. It was, of course, noted that the principal investigator, Mr. McVeigh, has a great deal of experience in terms of the suppression of terrorism in Northern Ireland. This added to the general satisfaction felt given the underlying aspects of Operation Delhi, which I have just referred to. On the 4th of February 2023, Mr. McGrail met with Mr. McVeigh in this office that you're now in. Mr. McVeigh being the senior investigating officer, and also in attendance for part of the meeting was his assistant, Mr. Kirkpatrick. The conversation was cordial, and Mr. McGrail urged Mr. McVeigh to obtain authority from the Governor to expand the range of matters under investigation to the extent that they impacted on the public inquiry. Mr. McGrail made himself available to assist Mr. McVeigh and his team in whatever way they required. But in the period since the 4th of February 2023, Mr. McGrail was surprised that he had not been contacted again by the investigators. He thought that this may be because they were busy conducting inquiries, Meanwhile, Mr McGrail had been working all hours to try to meet the deadlines and requirements imposed by the inquiry to ensure that the final hearing takes place in September. Notwithstanding, at 7:30 a.m. on the 23rd of March 2023, that's yesterday, a group of 6 police officers, led by Mr McVie, turned up at Mr McGrail's home armed with a search warrant. Mr McGrail was arrested before the warrant was executed. His personal belongings were searched and his IT and mobile devices were seized and taken away. These contain the legally privileged communications which Mr McGrail has had with his legal advisors and all the documentation that he was preparing in compliance with the inquiry's directions. We are hopeful that these will be returned to Mr McGrail during the course of today, but this has still not been confirmed. People listening to this statement will draw their own conclusions. I invite them to think about what I have just said. Now, meanwhile, Mr McGrail understands that there are a number of other lines of inquiry which PSNI, that's a police service of Northern Ireland, and I think they're assisted by a Welsh police force, is investigating. And he confirms that he remains available to assist law enforcement in whatever is required of him. Mr McGrail is confident that it will soon be found that he has not committed the alleged offences and calls on the investigators to expedite the conclusion of their work so that it does not impact further on the inquiry's timetable. It is, however, regrettable that the investigators should have acted as they did yesterday. In relation to this and all other relevant matters, the Royal Gibraltar Police has been kept fully informed since at least November of last year, 2022. Now, in summary, Mr McGrail called the inquiry. He reported the data breach to the authorities. He suggested that an external police force be brought in to investigate that and other sensitive matters. He notified the RGP of the documents that he had in possession. He met with the lead investigating officers, and he made himself available. And despite all this, he was arrested following an unannounced dawn raid 4 months after he uncovered the data breach and made all relevant reports to the inquiry and to the Royal Gibraltar Police. On another note, Mr McGrail has asked me to publicly thank the members of the Royal Gibraltar Police who attended on him at New Mole House Police Station yesterday. He considers them to be a credit to Gibraltarian policing and wishes to join the Governor and Commissioner Alger in their reassurances to the public that the RGP continues to function competently, notwithstanding the grave challenges that they face, as Commissioner Alger stated in his recent police orders newsletter, which has caused so much public disquiet. Now, that is the statement which I've just read out on behalf of Mr McGrail. I don't think it will be proper to take any questions except for clarification of anything I might have said, given the sensitivities of ongoing investigations and inquiries.
How is Mr McGrail feeling?
Mr McGrail is feeling hugely disappointed. He has 37 years of experience as a police officer in Gibraltar. It is his life's work, and having made himself available to the investigators, he finds it incomprehensible that he should have been the subject of a dawn raid yesterday. They had every opportunity to talk to him since they met here on the 4th of February. He was expecting them to come back. He was available to assist them in any way that they wanted. And I merely ask your viewers to consider how they would feel if in those circumstances they woke up tomorrow morning to find 6 police officers who then proceed to take your property and your communications devices, and then haul you into a police station and keep you there for in excess of, I think it was 12 hours.
Do you have a view on how this will affect the inquiry?
Well, the hope is that it will not affect the inquiry. Mr McGrail has made it his, again, life's work to, in the last year or so since the inquiry was convened, to assist in its prompt resolution. The fact that he has found out and had to make reports about data breaches and so on is not his fault. It was his obligation to have brought these matters to the attention of the authorities. He is committed to the inquiry. He needs the inquiry to conclude its work in September, and I hope, we all hope, that there is no delay, any further delay in this. It is affecting his life. His entire life is on hold, and for the purposes of the public good. So yes, that is a hope, that the inquiry will not be delayed any further.
Will you be taking any action?
No, he will continue working as he has, diligently and honestly and carefully, to ensure that the inquiry has all the information and all the assistance that it requires from him and from his legal team.